Right now, on To the Point. Pushback over Governor Newsom's special election proposal.
I will not participate in the drawing of lines for politicians.
Why Newsom wants to get more Democrats in Congress. Smoke damage claims denied. The center of a lawsuit against the California Fair Plan. What it means for affected homeowners.
Financial walls just feel like they're crushing down around me.
Changes in store for millions of student loan borrowers. The federal government now coming to collect. And on the back roads,
This is one heck of a seat here. This is like the top seat in the House.
a visit to an exotic bar like no other.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us on To the Point. I'm Becca Habiger. Well, just a day after he announced a potential special election to redistrict California, Governor Gavin Newsom is facing harsh criticism tonight. The governor is pushing to redraw California's congressional districts in response to President Trump's push to redistrict in red states. The president wants to send more Republicans to Congress in the midterms. ABC 10's Jeannie Nguyen shows us how redistricting could happen and how much it could cost the state.
Well, Becca, the governor's goal is to send more Democrats to Congress, and he says he wants this to be a transparent process and allow California voters to decide on the new maps. But the governor is getting a lot of pushback for the potential costs and interfering with the nonpartisan commission designated to redistrict.
A special election would be called. It's likely to be the first week of November. That process will unfold in a way where maps will be made available in a transparent way.
This is Governor Gavin Newsom's plan to send more Democrats to Congress as President Trump pushes for red states to redistrict. Texas Republicans just proposed new district maps.
We will go to the people of this state in a transparent way and ask them to consider the new circumstances.
The current redistricting process was put in place by voters in 2010 under the Voters First Act, giving that responsibility to the California Citizens Redistricting Commission, an independent group who uses census data to draw the lines. Because of that, if the state does have a special election to redraw the lines, experts believe it could result in a lawsuit.
And that lawsuit would challenge whether or not the legislature had the authority to place those congressional districts redrawn in the middle of the decade before even the voters, or whether or not that power is solely granted by the Constitution to the Citizens Redistricting Commission.
And it could cost the state hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars, something the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association says would be a waste of money.
I don't think this is actually going to happen because of the number of hurdles in terms of cost, in terms of political infighting, and in terms of breaking the norms of the normal process.
Republican Assemblymember Carl DeMille tells ABC 10 he will boycott this process if it is brought to the legislature to redraw the maps.
I will not participate in the drawing of lines for politicians. Politicians should not be choosing the voters should be choosing the politicians. I plan to boycott the process because it's illegitimate, corrupt.
And we reached out to Speaker of the Assembly, Robert Rivas, and the governor's office for additional information. A spokesperson for the speaker says the Assembly will review options with the governor and Senate to ensure our government remains fair, transparent, and representative of the people. The governor's office referred us to a comment made in yesterday's news conference where the governor said they're beginning to analyze this and said the cost of democracy, values, and rule of law is priceless. Becca.
Jeannie, thank you so much. Well, California's insurance commissioner is taking legal action against the state's last resort wildfire insurer, the Fair Plan. This legal action comes after a California judge ruled in June the Fair Plan's policy on smoke damage is unlawful. United Policyholders is a nonprofit representing insurance policyholders. They say the way the Fair Plan evaluates smoke damage claims needs to change. These policies impact homeowners like this one still recovering from the Eaton fire.
We still have our stuff inside the house, even though it's damaged. But for people, that have lost everything, that's got to be super traumatic to have to log everything that they used to own.
The Fair Plan responded to the statement saying, in part, the Fair Plan has been working with the California Department of Insurance over the past year to update and clarify its policy language around smoke damage, so the language reflects the manner in which these claims are being adjusted. The Fair Plan has 2 weeks to respond to the legal action with a formal hearing to follow. Well, California's Attorney General is among more than a dozen Democratic officials suing the Trump administration. This latest lawsuit accuses the administration of unlawfully intimidating healthcare providers into stopping gender-affirming care for transgender youth. The lawsuit filed today comes after a month in which at least 8 major hospitals and hospital systems, all in states where the care is allowed under state law, announced they are stopping or restricting the care. This includes Kaiser Permanente, as ABC 10 has reported. Democratic officials say Trump's policies are an attempt to impose a nationwide ban on the treatment for people under 19, which is unlawful because there's no federal statute that bans providing the care to minors.
For more than 135 years, states have had the legal authority to regulate the medical profession within their borders, a right that's protected by the 10th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. And that's been upheld by the courts. Trump and Bondi are breaking the law, violating the Constitution, and harming our people, which is why we're taking them to court again.
President Trump and others who oppose the care say it makes permanent changes that people who receive it could come to regret, and they claim it's being driven by questionable science. Breaking news out of Montana tonight, where authorities are searching for a suspect in a mass shooting. State investigators say 4 people were killed in the shooting this morning at a bar in the town of Anaconda in western Montana. No word yet on what led to the shooting, but public records show the suspect, 45-year-old Michael Brown, lived next door to the bar. He is believed to be armed and dangerous. Closer to home, the man accused of shooting and injuring 3 people during Picnic Day festivities at a Davis park is now facing a federal charge. Prosecutors accuse him of being a felon in possession of a firearm. Joseph Allen Davis was arrested in May for the April 12th shooting at Rainbow Park during Davis Picnic Day. Federal prosecutors say investigators seized a short-barrel AR-15 style pistol from the man's apartment. If convicted, he faces up to 15 years in prison and a $250,000 fine. New data now from the Labor Department shows U.S. jobs growth slowing substantially in recent months, suggesting hiring may be stifled by President Donald Trump's economic agenda. The weaker than expected jobs data, along with President Trump's shifting tariff policy, sent the stock market sliding and has economists concerned over what might come next.
U.S. job growth stalling. New data released Friday from the Bureau of Labor Statistics showed weaker than expected numbers for July, just 73,000 jobs added. And monthly totals for May and June were revised down by a combined 258,000 jobs.
There's just so much uncertainty around where these trade deals and where policy is ultimately going to land. That type of uncertainty really has quite seismic consequences, and we're starting to see it show up in the labor market.
The White House downplaying the data, saying it believes some loss of jobs is due to stronger immigration policies impacting foreign-born workers, and the economy will improve moving forward.
That uncertainty is resolved. The tariff rates are set. The one big beautiful bill is law. It's going to get better from here.
Thursday, President Donald Trump unveiled a revised trade policy affecting almost every nation starting August 7th. Breaking from decades of free trade and signaling a new protectionist era, a tariff of 10% will remain for countries with which the U.S. exports more than it imports, which is most of them. Nations with which the U.S. has a trade deficit face a 15% floor, with more than 24 of those countries facing an even higher tariff. The cost of those tariffs, according to economists, likely to be passed along to consumers.
Tariffs are a tax on literally everything the American consumer is buying. When you tax those goods, you make them more expensive, and that impacts the pocketbooks of the American people.
President Trump today once again attacked Fed Chair Jerome Powell for not lowering interest rates, even calling him a, quote, moron, saying the Fed's board should assume control. The president also fired the head of the agency that produces the monthly jobs figures following today's report. Student loan borrowers, get ready. Interest charges are coming back for millions on the SAVE plan. And later, Bartell's Backroads takes us to a unique bar serving up drinks in a room full of animals.
We had seasonal temperatures today. Tomorrow, still pretty seasonal in the mid-90s, and then briefly cooler for Sunday and Monday before we've got upper 90s on the way next week. Forecast after the break.
But first, in other headlines tonight, convicted Jeffrey Epstein accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell has been moved to a federal prison in Bryan, Texas. She had been serving a 20-year prison sentence in Tallahassee, Florida. The move comes a week after Maxwell met in private with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Tallahassee. The Corporation for Public Broadcasting is shutting down after more than 60 years. The announcement comes less than 2 weeks after President Donald Trump signed a bill that will cut $1.1 billion for the corporation. It means some local stations may not be able to stay afloat. Around 11 million people are under flood alerts tonight. A flash flood emergency was issued near the Washington, D.C. area, including suburban Maryland. The National Weather Service called it a particularly dangerous situation and said flash flooding was already occurring. Between 3 to 5 inches of rain has already fallen.
ABC 10 meteorologist Brendan Minchev joined us now. Brendan, you're tracking some changes compared to the month of July.
Yeah, and we're going to notice these changes in a couple ways. Less thunderstorms, and it is going to be warmer, especially when we get into next week. We really haven't had any thunder or even rain, for that matter, in the Central Sierra today. Of course, nothing in the valley. We don't see anything this time of the year. But different story in the northern part of the state. We've had some stronger thunderstorms in the northern Sierra. There's still one there, lots of lightning. We also have a thunderstorm up in Siskiyou County, right along the state line with Oregon there, just to the north of Happy Camp. There have been a lot of lightning strikes with these storms as well, and these have sparked some smaller fires. There's a couple of larger fires, a couple 100-acre fires in the northern part of the state, but those did not start today. Temperatures, very seasonal. It does feel warmer, though, because like I said, a lot of July was spent, especially the second half of the month, was spent in the 80s. So by the time we get to the start of August here and we see these temperatures climbing back into the low to mid 90s, even though that's normal, it does feel warmer because we just haven't been there for a while. 93 is what we made it to today, Sacramento, 95 in Stockton, 94 Modesto. 1 day for August and one green box, perfectly seasonal today. 90 in Sacramento right now, 91 Stockton, 93 Modesto, 80s in the foothills. We are going to start Saturday morning off in those upper 50s to low 60s. So cool and clear the mornings, especially all month long last month, and still into the first week of August are going to be a little bit below normal in those upper 50s. That does help to keep things feeling very nice through the first half of the day. Saturday afternoon, 95 in Sacramento, 96 Stockton, 96 in Modesto, 90s in the foothills, low 80s in the high country. But like I said, thunderstorms are going to start to be a little more rare, especially in the Central Sierra. Tomorrow afternoon, a few storms mainly north of Shasta, similar setup on Sunday. So if you're headed to Tahoe this weekend, thunder and rain really not going to be any sort of concern. High pressure beginning to build back in. That's going to send our temperatures climbing and our rain chances dropping. And by the time we get to the end of next week, we are going to be looking at temperatures in the mid to upper 90s. It's been a while since we've had a stretch of above normal temperatures, but that's what is just around the corner. So yeah, July was pretty mild. August so far, though, Becca, looking fairly warm.
That heat's coming. Thanks, Brendan. Well, a pay raise is coming to some California workers when a new minimum wage boost is expected, and by how much. A deadly crash leads to a $240 million verdict. Why a jury says Tesla's autopilot technology shares the blame. Starting today, millions of student loan borrowers will start accruing interest again on their loans. The change is coming after the Department of Education last week stopped the cancellation of student loans in income-based repayment plans.
Attention student loan borrowers enrolled in the SAVE plan. On August 1st, the Department of Education will resume charging interest on your loans.
The SAVE plan, introduced under former President Joe Biden's administration, lowers monthly payments and shortens the time it takes to receive student loan forgiveness based on enrollees' income. Now that plan and the 8 million or so borrowers who utilized it are in for some changes.
This plan has been tied up in litigation, and the Trump administration decided, without ever being forced by a court, to start interest charges for those borrowers.
Last year, federal judges in Kansas and Missouri blocked key parts of the SAVE plan. Following those court decisions, SAVE borrowers were placed in no interest forbearance, with payments paused and balances frozen since last summer. Today, interest will start to accrue again.
Once payments start, we expect they're going to pay about $5,000 more per year, including those interest charges, once they actually have to start making payments.
Mike Pierce, head of the Student Borrower Protection Center, says deciding what to do next is up to individuals, starting payments now or continue with forbearance. But either way, their balances will increase, causing stress for borrowers like medical resident Bronte Remzik.
I've spent my entire 20s in school, and so now in my 30s and as a young professional, I would love to have a life. The financial walls just feel like they're crushing down around me when I thought graduating medical school was the big win.
New tonight, California's minimum wage is set to increase by 40 cents from the current $16.50 per hour to $16.90 starting January 1st. Now, just hours ago, the director of the California Department of Finance sent a letter to state leaders notifying them of the calculated wage hike. The move comes as a built-in increase. Every year, the rate is adjusted for inflation based on the National Consumer Price Index for urban wage earners and clerical workers. State law says minimum wage cannot be lowered, and the highest raise allowed in any 1 year is 3.5%. The increase announced today represents a nearly 2.5%. Tesla is ordered to pay $240 million to the victims of a deadly crash. The crash in Miami involved the company's autopilot driver assist technology. The federal jury said Tesla bears significant responsibility because its technology failed, and that not all blame can be put on a reckless driver, even one who has admitted he was at fault. Well, next on To The Point, Bartell's Backroads takes us to a small town bar with nearly 300 wild animals and a wild past.
Wednesday on To The Point. The city of Elk Grove is growing, but at what cost?
Traffic, yeah, that's horrible. You can't get used to that. And it's getting worse.
With new housing,
you're going to see smaller lots and everything being built close together.
Schools.
We have 60 more to build where we physically know where they're going to go.
And more development coming in.
We're essentially creating our own version of what a downtown urban space would look like.
What's being done about concerns in a community that's changed so fast? Don't miss this To The Point special on Elk Grove's growth, Wednesday at 6:30, only on ABC 10.
Well, you never know what you'll see on the back roads. Tonight, John Bartell takes us to a bar in Solano County to see a lifeless zoo of sorts. This is Foster's Bighorn.
One of the valley's largest collections of exotic animals isn't in a zoo. It's actually in a small bar in Solano County. And you don't have to give up your seat to see lions, zebras, and even an elephant.
Man, this is one heck of a seat here. This is like the top seat in the house.
This is probably the top seat. A lot of people will tell you when they were growing up, if it was their birthday, the birthday treat was to sit underneath the elephant.
Welcome to Foster's Bighorn, a sports bar like no other.
How many animals are we talking about in here?
Just under 300.
Pull up a chair because this bar story is a doozy.
Bill was the founder of Foster's Bighorn and bought it in 31 and opened it in 33.
Bill Foster, avid hunter and prohibition moonshine bootlegger.
He was on the run from the law, and so he came up to Rio Vista from Alameda County and changed his name to Foster. And I think he kind of went into a little bit of hiding.
The liquor business was good before and after the Volstead Act, so much so that he was able to take lavish hunting trips to Africa, and he had the pictures to prove it.
He documented his travels really well as far as the pictures. He was a photographer. He loved doing this.
The pictures tell the story, but the taxidermy is the true art piece of the establishment. To get the lifelike looks, Bill Foster hired the Jonas Brothers, who were world-renowned museum-quality taxidermists.
Apparently there was a time when field trips would come in here.
After Bill died, the bar ended up in the hands of the IRS for a short while. A number of bar owners then ran the place, but eventually it ended up in Chris Wakeman's hands.
Why did you want to take over this place?
There wasn't a up on the wall, so I thought, what the hell?
Jokes aside, Chris says he respected what Bill Foster had built, so he brought back fine dining to the restaurant and even gave the animals a good cleaning.
This was something that Bill was privileged to go see, and he wanted to bring this back to share it. And his vision at the time turns out 94 years later that it's a museum for everybody to enjoy.
Today, some of the animals on the wall are now endangered or protected, but they date back to a time when hunting laws were different, and many people didn't know these animals even existed.
This was a totally different time. You know, this was preservation, conservation. The meat went to tribes and villages and families.
In a way, Foster's Bighorn is a museum protected by bar owners, past and present, and it's also enjoyed by generations of customers.
What do you think it is about this place that keeps people coming back here?
I think it's everybody telling stories about coming here, and everybody wants to come here. I've told many people about it. They said, I've never heard of the place. I said, just Google Foster's Bighorn, and trust me, you'll enjoy it. Just come down and you've got to check it out.
From Foster's Bighorn in Rio Vista, I'm John Bartel. Hope to see you on the back roads.
Well, I've been there for lunch. I can tell you it is worth seeing. You can find more Bartel's Backroads destinations on the ABC 10 Plus TV streaming app. They are all under the Shows tab. Scroll down to Travel, Bartel's Backroads. Download the free app to your TV. Well, coming up tonight on Late News Tonight at 11, tonight marks 1 month since the Esparto fireworks explosion. On July 1st, the fire and explosion resulted in the deaths of 7 workers on the site. 2 other people were also hurt. The fire destroyed several buildings and damaged homes in the area. The state fire marshal suspended all licenses for devastating pyrotechnics and Black Star fireworks as they investigate what led up to the deadly explosion. Many questions remain unanswered from residents, and tonight we are hearing from one family as the investigation continues. That's tonight on Late News Tonight at 11. Well, thank you so much for watching and inviting us into your home. If you have something you think we should be looking into, please reach out to the team. You can email tothepoint@abc10.com. And To The Point doesn't end here. To watch stories featured on the show, you can download our free ABC 10 Plus TV streaming app to your smart TV. We hope you have a great and safe night. We'll see you back here on Monday.